Philip here from PracticeGuitarNow.com. In this video, we're going to talk about how to make your vibrato better. Now, I made a video on vibrato in the past for this channel, and it gave you a little test that you can use to determine just how close you are to mastering this technique. And there are a few common errors, technical errors that guitar players make when they practice technique that make vibrato much harder to do than it should be. Because vibrato is really a very simple technique to do physically. It's all about listening to focus on the right sound, make sure it sounds exactly the way it's supposed to sound, and focusing on just a few technical fundamentals that ensure that you're able to produce the right sound consistently and make it sound good. The single most common reason why your vibrato might not sound good or why it might not feel as easy to do the technique as it should is if your thumb is not wrapped around the neck of the guitar as it should be and instead is behind the neck like this, as it would be when you're playing scales and arpeggios. It's much easier to do vibrato when you're able to use the web between your index finger and thumb as the pivot point to rotate your arm and apply pressure to the string to produce vibrato, as opposed to keeping the thumb behind the neck and trying to achieve the same sound. Now, you can do vibrato with the thumb behind the neck and have it sound good, but this is a more advanced variation of vibrato that can be learned later after you've learned the easier way with the thumb wrapped around the neck. So focus on this first, and then everything becomes much, much easier after that. Another very common mistake that makes vibrato much more difficult than it should be is only using one finger at a time to do vibrato. For instance, I see many guitarists do vibrato with only one finger, like this, where the middle finger is doing the vibrato, but the other fingers are flapping in the wind instead of being used to help. Or you can do vibrato with the index finger, the other finger is still flapping in the wind. Now, it's very possible to do vibrato with only one finger and have it sound good. It's possible, it can be done, but it's much harder to do it, and it's even more difficult when you are first learning the technique. When you're first learning vibrato, all your focus needs to be on producing the right sound and keeping the vibrato in tune and keeping it controlled, not on making it harder for yourself than it needs to be on a physical level. After you get the right sound, then you can focus on different variations that require more control from your fretting hand, but not until that sound isn't established. So the simple solution here is to use more than one finger. For example, you can do vibrato with the third finger on the 9th fret and use the middle finger and the index finger to help out, like this. This makes it much easier to do the vibrato, especially when you have the thumb wrapped around the neck, as we talked about a moment ago. Another technical element that makes a huge difference in how hard or how simple vibrato feels to do is how you actually fret the note itself. Normally, when you play scales and arpeggios, you want your fingertips to be perpendicular to the frets. So right now, the fingernail of my third finger is perpendicular to the fret. When you do vibrato, everything changes. So watch, as you bring the thumb over the top of the neck, the fingernail and the finger and the wrist rotate. So now the fingernail is no longer perpendicular to the fret. This allows me to get much better control over the string, and vibrato becomes much easier. Another common problem with vibrato is trying to use finger extension or finger flexion to do the technique as opposed to using arm rotation. So this happens to some guitar players who may be doing everything else right, such as they have the thumb wrapped around the neck, they're using several fingers together crammed into the space of 1 or 2 frets, but when they do vibrato, it looks something like this. Notice how the fingers are simply flexing and then releasing, as opposed to this, where the entire arm is moving. Compare this to this. The solution here is very simple. Once your hand is in the right position, all you need to do is simply dig into the string a lot more with a lot more power than you normally would for playing regular notes that don't require a lot of tension. This is especially important in the beginning when you don't yet have a lot of calluses built up on the side of your fingertip, as you need to have to really do vibrato well. So again, the point here is not to overanalyze your technique to death. It's to make vibrato as easy as possible for yourself to play physically, so your mind is free to focus on the one thing that matters most, which is the sound. Once the sound of your vibrato is exactly as you want it to be, then it's time to integrate it into your other techniques and guitar licks so that your playing sounds awesome. You don't have to think about how your hand needs to be positioned to do vibrato. You just do it and the sound is awesome every single time. Use the test from my earlier video about vibrato that helps you track your progress in this area and really know how close you are to mastering vibrato and what else you need to do to make your playing sound even better. And there are many more guitar practice and guitar technique articles, videos, and resources on my website, practiceguitarnow.com. They're going to help you with all aspects of your practicing. If you haven't yet done so, subscribe to my YouTube channel to stay up to date on all my future videos about guitar technique and practicing. I'll be uploading them pretty regularly. And until next time, apply what you've learned here, have fun practicing, and I'll see you next time.